بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين ومن تبعهم بإحسان ودعا بدعوتهم إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Today I thought I'll continue with the topic of marriage because it's been a while since I've talked about this. And this is very important within the Muslim community because the Ummah is dependent on our marriages. When our marriages are good, then the Ummah will be good. But if the marriages are not being done properly, the marriages are being delayed, the tarbiyah of the children are not done in terms of marriage, then the Ummah is corrupt. So we can't fix the Ummah without fixing the marriages. So the first point is, what is the purpose of marriage? Yes, one of the purposes of marriage is to have children. One of the purposes of marriage is to increase the Ummah of the Prophet ﷺ. But the main purpose of marriage, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in Surah An-Nisa, verse 24, Surah An-Nisa, verse 25, Surah An-Nur, verse 32. Allah talks about the purpose of marriage is to preserve a person's chastity. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created desires within men, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created desires within women. And the purpose of marriage is to channel that desire and fulfill it in a halal way. This is the purpose of marriage. Allah says in the Quran, وَالْمُحْسَنَاتُ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. And prohibited for you to marry are those women who are already married. إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ, except that which your right hand possesses. كِتَابَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. And then Allah says, وَأُحِلَّ لَكُمْ مَا وَرَاءَ ذَلِكُمْ. Then you may fulfill your desire with that which your right hand possesses, or any other woman. أَن تَبْتَغُوا بِأَمْوَالِكُمْ, that you seek to fulfill your desires Allah has created within you. بِأَمْوَالِكُمْ, with your wealth, by paying the dowry. مُحْسِنِينَ غَيْرَ مُسَافِحِينَ, that you fulfill your desires within the boundaries of marriage. غَيْرَ مُسَافِحِينَ, not just out of lust, and fulfill your desires wherever and however you want. Because for the Ummah to be solid, the marriage and the family structure needs to be strong. The word usra in Arabic language means family. But it comes from the meaning of strength. Because if children are born out of wedlock, then the tarbiyah of the children will not be done. There is no deep commitment between the man and the woman to raise this child. So that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. He talks about how He has created desire within the men and women. And the purpose of this marriage is to fulfill that desire within the halal means, within the means that will be benefiting to the ummah. Allah talks about in Surah An-Nisa, verse 25, آتُوهُنَّ أُجُورَهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, that give them their dowries with goodness, مُحْصَنَاتٍ, seeking to marry, غَيْرَ مُسَافِحَاتٍ وَلَا مُتَّخِذَاتِ أَخْدَانٍ, not just fulfilling your lust and your desires outside of marriage, وَلَا مُتَّخِذَاتِ أَخْدَانٍ, neither trying to take them as your secret lovers, where you fulfill your desires secretly, without fulfilling your responsibilities towards the wife and neither towards the children. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, in Surah An-Nur, verse 32, He encourages the parents to marry off your children early. وَأَنْكِحُ الْأَيَامَ مِنْكُمْ وَالصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكُمْ وَإِمَائِكُمْ, and marry off those who are unmarried amongst you. This is, number one, instruction to the parents, the fathers and the mothers. And number two, a broader instruction to the community. Those amongst you that are young, marry them off. وَالصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكُمْ, and the pious from amongst your slave men, وَإِمَائِكُمْ, and slave women. إِن يَكُونُوا فُقَرَاء, but then the question comes, but they're poor, they don't have a job, they don't earn enough. إِن يَكُونُوا فُقَرَاء يُغْنِهِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ, if they're poor, Allah will enrich them from His bounty. وَاللَّهُ وَاسِعٌ عَلِيمٌ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most knowledgeable. So this is an instruction to the fathers, to the mothers, to marry off your children early. And the purpose of marriage is to protect their chastity. Now, for us, especially living in the Western countries, living in the UK, our children, they go through schooling system. They go to mixed schools. Then they go to A-levels, mixed schools. Then they go to university. Some even move out, live on campus. They're going through these mixed schools. Of course they'll have desires. When does a child start to have desires? From the age of puberty. Child starts to have desires. And by the age of 16, 17, they need to start maintaining those desires or fulfilling those desires. As parents, what we need to do, we need to start having conversations. We need to have conversations with our children. Once they reach the age of 16, we need to start talking to them about marriage. Have these discussions, sit them down. When do you want to get married? Tell them, as let's say if you have a son, as a father, you need to tell your son what it means to be a husband, what it means to be a father. How do you become a good husband? How do you look after your wife? How do you look after your children? How to have a good relationship with your wife? The importance of taqwa within the marriage. Importance of being a man of salah, a man of Allah within the marriage. You need to have these discussions with your son. And likewise, if you have a daughter, once she reaches the age of 16, you need to have these discussions with your daughter, what it means to be a good wife. How do you become a good wife? What qualities do you need? If you see traits within her, that potential traits that will damage her marriage in the future, sit her down. Talk to her, these are the traits that you need to work on in order to be a good mother and to be a good wife. And start talking to daughters and asking them, when do you want to get married? And start doing their tarbiyah from a young age. So that when they are old enough, 23, 24, you have got them ready for their married life. So many adults in their late 20s, 30s. SubhanAllah, so many that have come up to me. I was speaking to one brother, he's like 30 years old. Imagine, 30 years old. And I tell him, when are you going to get married? We went to school together. I asked him, when are you going to get married? And he says, I'm not ready yet. I still need to work on myself. And SubhanAllah, and I'm thinking, it's not his fault. What has his parents been doing? He's still living with his parents, and the father and the mother has not been able to do the tarbiyah of this man, so that by the time he reaches 30 years old, he's still saying he's not ready for marriage. Who has gone wrong and where has this gone wrong? So we need to have honest conversations with our sons and daughters, because by the time, when they reach the age of 16, they have desires, and they want to fulfill these desires. Now the question is, how they fulfill the desires and where. If as parents we fail to have these conversations with our children, these desires aren't going to go away by ignoring them. My child will not become an angel just if I don't talk about this subject. What's going to happen? They're going to talk about this subject with their friends. They're going to have relationships outside of marriage. And by the time they're 25, 26, they probably would have had 10, 15 different relationships. That's what's going to happen. So it's not a matter of, if I ignore it, the problem will go away. The problem will be there, and because they're human beings. Now the question is, do I challenge it in a way which is good for them? So number one is talking to them and doing the tarbiyah from an early age. Starting to talk about this topic from the age of 16. Number two, now as they go older, 18, 19, 20, this communication needs to be open with them. That our children are going to mixed schools. There will be boys in their class, there will be girls in their class. And because they are humans and they're not angels, they may find someone that they like. Now if we as parents fail to communicate with our children, what's going to happen? They'll have relationships outside of marriage. And this relationship may last for years and years and years. SubhanAllah, I've had cases where a girl has had a relationship with a man and the parents didn't approve because of cultural reasons. Not Islamic reasons, because of cultural reasons. Now she's older, she's 25, 26. The parents force her to marry someone that they like. And because women, you can push them to do, as parents, you can push them to do whatever you like, unfortunately. The parents pressured her into getting married. So now she's married to this man, she doesn't want to marry him. But she still has a relationship with her previous boyfriend. This is what's happening in our communities. And the father, mashallah, is happy because he's got the son-in-law that he always wanted. But her life is ruined. And the man who didn't deserve this, his life is ruined as well. Why? Because the stubbornness of the father. He wanted, this is what he wanted for his daughter, doesn't care what she wanted, or anything else, just what he wants. It's all about him. So we need to have this two-way communication open, where we need to be able to be open with our children. that if you happen to find someone, we guide them in terms of what's halal in a relation, what's haram. We teach them how to talk to the opposite gender. We teach them in terms of making friends with the opposite gender. We teach them the rules of halal and haram, of course. But we also understand the reality of the world that we're living in. That in school, if you're doing your A-levels or university, you happen to find someone, we tell them, you don't need to do any haram. We're very clear. You don't need to do any haram. If you find someone that you like, come talk to me about it. As a father, I'll assess the situation. As a father, I'll look into this. And if this person fits with your criteria in what we're looking for, because we want a person that is Islamic minded, they pray their salah, their ambitions and their goals is deen, and this person is a genuine and decent person, don't worry, I'll get you married. I'll speak to his father or her father for you. If we don't have these conversations, it's not like they're going to stop having relationships. They will have relationships. We'd rather have our daughters not sleeping from men after men in universities, but when she finds someone, she's able to talk to her father and do it the halal way. But then we say, okay, but they're going to make mistakes. They're too young. It's better for them to make halal mistakes and go to Jannah afterwards than they're making haram mistakes. The challenges of this community are very different. The challenges that we're facing in our communities, living in the UK, now is very, very different. We need to have open communication with our children. We need to talk to this subject without it being a taboo, without it being a strange subject. We need to have a relationship that we can bond with our adult children. Because once they're age of 16, they're adults. They're no longer children. They are adults and they are no longer children. We need to start treating them like adults. Once your child has become 16, 17, 18, the relationship switches. Before, when they were younger, it's all about I say and you do. This is when they're very young. Whatever I say, you do. I'll explain it when I can. If I don't explain it, doesn't matter, you do. As the child grows older, this relationship changes. Then we need a friendship type relationship, where the father can sit down with his children, just talk, joke around with the children, be friendly with the children. The children should be able to go to the father and just tell the father what's happening in life, happening in school. There needs to be a bond of friendship. If this bond of friendship is not there, your child will be in so many different relationships and you'll be the last person to find out. SubhanAllah, you'll go to your friends and you'll be boastful. MashaAllah, my daughter has graduated from a master's degree, she's a doctor, she's this and this and this. MashaAllah, sent her to the best university. But what you won't know is how many relationships she had in the process. How did she get her master's? What happens in the first year of university? SubhanAllah, I've been to university. I've been to university and I know what's happening in universities. I help those students, I talk to those students. What our daughters are doing in universities. It's a very, very ugly sight. I'm not saying don't send them to universities. I'm not saying don't get our children educated. That's not the point. The point is when we send them into these places, we need to take measures. We need to keep this door open for them to be able to talk to us. So why are we in this situation where our daughters are hitting their 30s, our sons are hitting their 30s, but they're still not married? One of the biggest reasons are the parents, and it's the fathers. Those of us who are fathers here, how many of us actually talked about marriage when my daughter and son hit the age of 16, 17, 18? How many of us? Either no one or very few people will put their hands up and say, I've done this responsibility. If we haven't done this responsibility, they'll be too shy to come to us. And they'll just fulfill their desires in the haram way. So as parents, we need to take on this responsibility. Our children are growing up with a father, but as if they don't have fathers. They have fathers, biological fathers. MashaAllah, he goes to work, he comes home and spends hours on Facebook. The father is alive. Despite the father being alive, they're orphans. The girl has hit 25, 26, the father's never sat down with her and asked her when you want to get married. As if she's an orphan. There's no one to look after her affairs. She's 25, she's ready to get married, she wants to get married. She's been thinking about marriage from the age of 18, 19, 20 with her friends. But, where's the father? The father's never said, when do you want to get married? Tell me if you find someone. Do you want any help finding someone? They have biological fathers that are alive, but they're still orphans. We as parents, we need to take responsibility of the younger generation. And number two, if they are old enough to get married, and everyone remember this point. If they are old enough to get married, they are old enough to choose their own husband and wife. Allah gives the parents authority over a son and daughter, yes. But it's not absolute authority that they must do as you say, no. لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. There is no obedience to the creation in the disobedience of the Creator. Who they marry is their choice. Who your daughter wants to marry, it's her choice. Who your son wants to marry, it's his choice. Yes, the wali, the legal guardian, the father, has a right to object to this marriage when there's a mismatch. Let's say your daughter, mashallah, you've raised her very well. She observes the hijab, prays the 5 times salah, recites the Quran. She has an Islamic mindset. Now she meets somebody in university who's, let's say, doesn't pray salah. He's not Islamically grounded. He's addicted to all sorts. His character is not good. His deen is not good. Let's say he drinks alcohol. Now your daughter comes to you with a proposal. Now this marriage is a mismatch. Because you trained your daughter very well Islamically, and he hasn't been trained well. This is a mismatch. Hence here, the father has the right in Islam to say, no, I don't agree with this marriage, it's not going ahead. What the father doesn't have the right to do is reject the proposal based on his own desires. Now I wanted someone this tall. This person is too short. I'm going to reject it now. SubhanAllah, I've had cases where it was rejected. The boy and the girl, they wanted it. But the mother said, no, he's not tall enough. He's not tall enough. And the marriage was broken up. I've had marriages between two Bengalis. She was a bit too dark. SubhanAllah, it wasn't even a different race. She was slightly too dark, the marriage was called off. SubhanAllah. This is oppression. This is oppression to the children. If the fathers are oppressing their children when it comes to marriages, they don't need to obey their fathers. Because Allah has not given that father that absolute right to be able to oppress their children. So second thing we need to do, we need to make marriages easy. Whatever Allah has made halal, keep it halal. Whatever Allah has made haram, keep it haram. Different ethnicity. If we want our children, let's say my children, they're Bengalis. I want my children to marry a Bengali. What do we need to do? Go back to Bangladesh and live there. Because our culture is different here. When our children go to schools, they'll be in schools with Pakistanis, Indians, Nigerians, Africans, different ethnicities. They will find someone that they like. If you want your child to only marry a Bengali, go back to Bangladesh and live in Bangladesh. Because they'll only see Bengalis, they'll only know Bengalis. So when it comes to marriage, they'll meet a Bengali. That's the solution. But here, this is a new culture. Children, 18, 19-year-olds are growing up in this country, born in this country. Our culture is very different. For us, ethnicity is not an issue. Ethnicity does not necessitate compatibility. And neither is ethnicity rejecting a marriage proposal because he's from Nigeria, or because he's from Pakistan, or because he's from Bangladesh. This is not a valid ground in terms of the Sharia. What we look at in a marriage is taqwa and deen. This is the criteria that Allah has put. If we as parents have a different criteria than the Sharia, our children, they don't need to obey us parents because we're oppressing them. Yes, we may advise them. If a proposal comes to your daughter from a different ethnicity, as parents, we have the right to advise them. We can say to our daughters and our sons, it will be better if you marry within your own ethnicity because of X, Y, and Z reasons, because of culture, because of language barriers, because of communication, because of X, Y, and Z. As parents, we can advise our children for this, if we want to. What we cannot do, we cannot force them, because Allah has not given the parents this right. If a proposal comes to them from a different ethnicity, the deen matches, the character is good. إِذَا جَاءَكُمْ مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ. When a person comes to you and you're pleased with his deen and character, فَزَوِّجُوهُ, marry them off. As a father, this is your responsibility. Marry them off. Do not impose your own conditions on your children. I want this for my daughter, so hence, I'll only accept this. And every other proposal that comes, whatever she brings, I'm going to reject everything. This is oppression. You're oppressing your children. And you're forcing them towards haram. You're oppressing your children and you're forcing them towards haram. What we need to do, two things to take away from this khutbah. Number one, be friends with your children. Talk to them openly about marriages and do their tarbiyah from a young age. Talk to them from the age of 16, 17, 18, what to look for in a spouse, and to keep that communication open. If and when you find someone, come and talk to me. There's no need to go through haram. Number one. And number two, be permissive when it comes to marrying. Make halal what Allah has made halal, and make haram what Allah has made haram. Don't have your own conditions on what you want for your daughter, even though they don't want it. Or what you want for your son, even though they don't care about these things. It is their right to marry who they want, as long as the compatibility in Sharia is there. As long as the taqwa and the deen matches, if they are okay with everything else, then you as parents, you must be okay with everything. Yes, you may not like it. You might have preferred someone from your own ethnicity. Yes, and you are entitled to prefer that. You're entitled to encourage them to marry from your own ethnicity. You're entitled to encourage them and give them your own in terms of what you want. But what you're not entitled to do is force your child to marry who you want. It is their right, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them this right. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our marriages easy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us as parents to fulfill our responsibility towards the younger generation, towards our children when it comes to marriage. Ameen wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillah.